everyone. Welcome to the Leading Woman Show. According to the Nigerian Living Standards 2020, women in Nigeria represent 49.2% of the population. That is almost half of the country's population. However, at its peak in 2007, women's political representation was 8.3%, and it has been on a decline ever since. For those who are not aware, Nigeria has never had an elected female president or an elected female governor. So, if like me, you have ever wondered why women's political inclusion in Nigeria continues to be a challenge, then stay tuned as we explore the topic, a faulty foundation, why women fail in politics. So welcome once again to the Leading Woman Show, election series brought to you with support from the National Endowment for Democracy. I am Abosede Jojogan, and today I will be speaking with three amazing guests. With us in the studio is Tari Taylor, a TV producer and the current Youth Party representative for Etiosa 1 State House of Assembly. We also have Bolahan Olojede, the Executive Director of DMA Advisory. He has over 28 years' experience in management services. And finally, Barrister Dele Farotimi, a retired legal practitioner, author, and current spokesperson for the Labour Party 2023 presidential election. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. Really good to have all of you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
We're talking about a very, very interesting topic today. And where I'd like to start is with you, Mr. Farotimi.
Okay.
Women played a key role in independence movement, in the pre-colonial movement, and of course, post-colonial and pre-democratic movement. But somehow, women have not been able to take their space in the modern-day Nigerian political system. Why do you think that's the case?
I'm actually thinking that there is a misunderstanding of the foundations itself. The foundation is just as representative as where we are today. You had female participation in the southern part of Nigeria to a very large extent because the societies in southern Nigeria were permissive and encouraging of women participation. So I think they got the vote much earlier. But when you talk about northern Nigeria, to a very large extent, women were excluded officially from the electoral processes. So it's not like we're coming from a history of female inclusion per se. It's actually more a history of exclusion in vast parts of Nigeria, inclusion, but only to minimal degrees, even in the South, where it wasn't actively discouraged. Cultural practices tended to ensure that females were largely kept to the background. But what we have today is only reflective of where we're coming from. It could be better, but certainly, at least in northern Nigeria, you now have more than the salutary participation of women, and you're increasingly having women coming in to the public space, but it wasn't always like that.
Wasn't always like that. So, I mean, Tari, from your perspective, I hear what Mr. Farotimi is saying, but I'm thinking that I heard names like Queen Amina, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I know about, some Funmilayo Ransom Kuti,
Yes.
you know, and all these women who did something right, to go into the history books. At what point did things start to change? Or from your perspective, where did we go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, if Efuncheton, Moremi,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
we all hear of these great women who did incredible things in their communities or in the kingdoms that they were part of at the time. I think the Nigerian woman, wherever she's coming from, whatever tribe, whatever ethnic group, there is a spirit of leadership, and taking initiative and resourcefulness in the Nigerian woman. So wherever she finds herself, that would always be expressed in one way or the other. So I guess the question that we would be asking is that, does the environment enable these women to come forward and put that resourcefulness and industry and leadership potential? Do they allow women to express it? I can only speak to my situation as a woman vying for public office, and I have been in public service, as a volunteer and in different capacities. Also, I've worked for a long time, in an industry. I would not particularly say that my experience has been one of exclusion. I have never had a situation where I felt hindered or limited because I am a woman, and that's even from the environment that I'm engaging. However, there are certain limitations. We all know that, and they're more cultural than anything.
That's hold that thought, because we're going to come to culture and religion. But I mean, for you, Mr. Olajide, I would really like to hear your perspective on this faulty foundation. So, for example, I'm sure that if I asked you about your mother, you'd have some interesting stories. Now, do you think that there is a way that she was portrayed that makes it difficult to believe that she can lead, for example?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think the foundation actually goes way back through the evolution of the modern man that we have today. I like the way Chimamanda puts it. Several years ago, when man was evolving, to survive, you need the physical strength. So men were naturally physically stronger on a general basis. Of course, there will be here and there that are not like that, But men were generally stronger. Therefore, they led and they occupied everywhere. That was how humanity then could survive that season. But over the years, that has changed. What dominates the world today is in between the two airs. It is the brain. And when it comes to the brain, there is no gender preference. Anybody could be brilliant, anybody could serve, anybody could get the work done. But it takes time for our world to realize that things have changed. Think about it. Even in America, 240-something years of independence, not one woman president. It's not a coincidence. It just did not happen by accident. It is part of that foundation that we're talking about. So it is dismantling that foundation that should now be the focus of the new season that we find ourselves.
Fantastic. I love that. So what I hear you say is that this is a societal construct, right? And so, therefore, to your point, if we created it, hopefully we can, deconstruct and dismantle it. So, Mr. Fagarutmi, what role do you think that religion and culture, because you made reference to culture earlier, has played in shaping the way women are perceived, and therefore sort of the, I guess, direct relation to that women cannot lead?
I think to understand just how extensive the hold of religion particularly has been on our lives, you have to first of all deconstruct the word. What is religion? You go to the Latin root, religare. It means to bind, literally to tie someone up. In a dictionary of etymology that I checked, what you actually find is a picture of a little bird that had his wings tied. Religion is meant to constrain your mind and your imagination, to have you be ready to receive instructions and to do as you are told. That is the whole intendment of religion. In Africa, we didn't have religions. We had spirituality. And that is why you could speak to the Queen Aminas of this world. You could talk about the Efun Shetan and Niwuras. We didn't have societies stratified along sex lines. It was better integrated. So religion is essentially a tool of control. And just as it seeks to control the man, you can imagine exactly what the patriarchal religions have done in constraining the female. Our culture varies across Nigeria, but my own culture as a Yoruba person, the female was not considered less than the male in my culture. And I will go as far as to say that in some subculture of the Yorubas, you actually had female kings. And I use the word king deliberately so that you understand the absolute nature of the powers that they wield. And you still see remnants of these, particularly amongst the Ekitis, where you have female regents when kings pass on. So you find that amongst the Yorubas per se, culturally, females were not subjugated, even though, as Bolan has pointed out, the evolution of our race has accounted for the role that men has taken in society because of our physical advantages. However, in spite of that, specific roles have always been reserved for women. You even have situations where, even in our mythology and our spirituality, you have women specifically deified. So you hear of goddesses such as Oya, you hear of Oshun. We deify women. And they are really, what you have, these discriminatory practices are actually importations of foreign religion, cultural acquisitions that has come as a function of colonialism, perhaps, and mostly the worst effect of religion.
I appreciate that, because I think that many times, we only think about the things that we acquire as the good things, right?
Correct.
But what I hear you say is that actually there's some things that we have acquired that we need to start to think, how do we let go of, because they do not serve us. And unfortunately, many years later, we're still here where it's actually beginning to affect us in a way where women are just not in leadership positions across the country. So let me come to you, Tari. From your perspective, religion, culture, does it play a role? Has it shaped the way that we perceive women? And I mean, as a woman, do you have any constraints that religion puts on you?
So, I mean, culture is very interesting because it's what it's communicated to you from the very point that you have a consciousness, from when you can understand. So from primary school, or let me even say in the family, first of all, you go to church, you go to Sunday school, you go to secondary school, the entire socialization process. Culture is, communicated to you through it. So there are certain things that you may even have believed unconsciously. Don't be too out there. Don't be too opinionated. Try and be more gentle. Don't be too aggressive in putting your point forward, or don't be seen as too passionate in pushing an agenda that you believe in. These are subtle messages that are said to women or the female as you're growing up. Be more reserved, be more, contain yourself. Contain yourself.
A woman should be heard and not, should be seen and
but not heard.
Where did we get
and
that
we
from?
we all sort of absorb these messaging, through our growing up. And as you grow as a woman, the more you start to discover yourself, you may feel a bit more liberated in certain elements to maybe speak out, maybe express yourself in the way you dress, in the way you communicate, in your work, however it is that you want to. So somehow along the line, we start to unlearn, some of those stereotypical thoughts that we have been fed. And especially for leadership, I think that we need to go back to that, revisit that socialization process and start to encourage girls. I would even say from as young as primary school, learn to put up your hand.
Yes.
When a question is asked, don't be shy. Don't be afraid of people saying you are too forward or too precocious or whatever.
Because if that was a man, they would say
Nobody
he's bold.
would say anything. They would say he's bold. Yes.
For doing
They
the
will say
exact same thing.
Oh, what a
yes.
great boy. He's
Yeah.
bold. But for a female, it's so it's too forward.
Yes.
She's too opinionated. She's
Yes.
too, and that's wrong. We must not suppress any form of initiative, whether it's a boy or whether it's a girl.
Absolutely.
I believe in allowing children to empower them to express themselves.
Absolutely.
So once we start to encourage females from that young age, give them the confidence, to say, your opinion is valid. Your thoughts, your ideas are valid. Don't shy away from putting your thoughts forward. Till now, I go for meetings and sometimes I'm the only female, and I find that instinctively I want to be quiet. I don't tell myself that be quiet, but I just find that when there's a table of men, I find that it's my instinct. I just want to not be seen to be pushy or aggressive. So I'm naturally calm, but I even tend to be calmer in those situations because of how I want to be perceived. But I have to tell myself, okay, if I have a viable proposition, if I have value to contribute, am I going to shortchange the people who will benefit from that value because I want to be seen to be a certain way?
Exactly. Thank you very much for that. So before we go on a break, I want to hear from you, Mr. Olojide.
Okay.
Religion and culture.
Culturally, some of the things that emerge much later in life for women actually started in a rather innocuous way. When a child has been brought up and a gender has to be in the kitchen all the time, while the other guy can sit with his books or do something else, we start to plant certain things that are innocently being done. But you see, over the years, what you find out is that that person that you say your responsibility when you come is either in the other room or in the kitchen, it has an effect on how she projects herself or how she comes out to be part of something that is in the open. I was sharing something with Tari while we were sitting there. One of the aspirants for presidency had invited some people to Abuja to have a discussion, before the primaries. Out of about 50 of us that were in that room, no single woman. And I had asked, what's going on here? You say you want to talk with opinion molders and all the rest. Stakeholders. And there were 40, 50 people and not a woman. Then they showed me the list. There were actually women that were invited. None of them showed up. Why? The meeting started at 8 p.m. till 5:30 a.m. in the morning. So the question you must ask yourself is, how many women feel it is good enough to be out at that time? So the society tells you that a man can be in that meeting, but a woman cannot be there.
I have a question. Why did the meeting have to hold
at that hour? That is the
because that's how we start to change societal constructs. It's not women that need to change.
It is the society that needs to realign
So that meeting
itself.
could have started at 8 a.m., for example.
In consideration of the fact that there are women who might not be able to attend if you put it at 8 to 5:30 a.m.
Great. Hold that thought. We're going to go on a break now, but when we come back, we're going to start to explore how do we start to redefine these foundations, because as we already said, they were societal constructs that were laid. And so we will start to explore, is there a way to deconstruct this? And what does that look like? Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. So we're going to continue this important conversation about a faulty foundation, why women fail. And I want to come to you, Mr. Farotimi. So Nigeria is a signatory to all the treaties, as far as I'm concerned. CEDAW. Every treaty that wants to eliminate discrimination, that wants to ensure that we have affirmative action, Nigeria is signed up to these treaties. I mean, is that a solution? Is that a silver bullet in terms of, can a legal or legislative framework, if domesticated, if legislated, can that start to rebuild these foundations?
Laws came to die in Nigeria.
We need a moment of silence for that.
Because the truth is, we have fantastic laws in our statute books. We have good intentions, stated often in seriously verbose languages by our rulers. But they rarely ever follow through on their promises and their words. So we're signatories to all these international treaties, but we observe them only in breach than in observance. Even our own legislations, because once you domesticate it, it becomes part of your own laws.
Absolutely.
But you find that the political will is not there. And then until very recently, and this is not an indictment on the female folk, it's an indictment on all of us, but those who are directly affected, who should be interested in seeing enforcement, have been largely disconnected from the system. But recently, the female folks appear to have woken up, and they are waking up the rest of the country. And I am hopeful that having gotten that judgment out of the Federal High Court, there would also be a push for enforcement.
Fantastic. And I mean, Tari, I don't know if you know about the judgment that he's speaking about, but the national gender policy, which we've had since 2006, by the way, and has never been implemented, to your point, has a provision for 35%, yes, representation of women in appointive offices, right? But it has never been implemented. So a few organizations actually took the federal government to court and they won that judgment. So going forward, ideally, and I'll tell you why I say ideally, going forward, it would be wrong for any appointments to take place and 35% of that not be female. But unfortunately, ministers were appointed after that. And we know what the case is. It was all men. So what is that disconnect? Why are we have the legislation, like he says, but why are we not implementing? Why are we not taking action?
Well,
and what can we do differently?
Certain factors contribute to that because one, operating in this politics and governance space, whenever this question comes up about female participation, one constant theme that keeps popping up is, but where are the women? Are there women stepping up or stepping forward to take these roles? That's always a constant, defense that is put up. And the question is, there may not be as many women who should be qualified women who should be stepping up, who are stepping up to take these positions. And that may feed into some of the cultural, elements we were talking about before, and perception, general societal perception of women in politics. It's not a very favorable perception. Many times you are a woman in politics, you are seen to be wayward, you are seen to be, you're a married woman, why are you not taking care of your home? What are you looking for up and down the place, So there are a lot of these, and then of course, late nights and all of that. So a lot of these cultural perceptions kind of inhibit women. Women don't want to be seen a certain way, so they will say, you know what, even as much as I have a burning desire to serve, but I don't want to be perceived like this. Or there are a lot of myths about how dirty politics is. So people say it's not for women. If you want to go into politics, you will get dirty. Your reputation may be soiled. So just stay out of it. So a lot of women believe those things. And then just to be safe, really, they don't want to step out, no matter how qualified they are actually.
Exactly. Yes. And I think that's the point. It's not a lack of competence or capability, right? It's the fact that we've just not seen as many women in those positions.
Yes.
So we actually don't know where to get them. Because if you think typically in this country, if you think about, I want to nominate a minister for defense.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I
want a female general.
Exactly. That is the point. There are female generals,
but we don't know of them.
But we don't know of them because they don't have they don't have the visibility.
You see, cultural, the socio-cultural thing is actually fighting against even the legality side of things. Socio-cultural issues, religious issues. There was an emir in this country who sent his daughter to go and represent him at an event. It became a serious issue because in that part of town, it was more like a taboo that men, clerics, everybody, they are sitting in a hall and you dare to send your daughter to go and represent you at that kind of an event. That is religion fighting against even a woman that has shown up. Even in my own religion, I have places where it says women should not ask questions. If you have a question, you go home. When you get home, you ask your husband. So that is religion also fighting against legality. So part of the fight actually is in that socio-cultural space. To take away some of this limitation and begin to liberate these women. Let them feel confident that they can go out there without being castigated for being a woman. We are actually shortchanging ourselves. If 42% of the population, 49% of the population is women, but they are not participatory.
Exactly. So I want to stay with you and talk about the Gen Zs.
Okay.
Now, this new generation of people who are breaking the status quo, they're taking no prisoners when it comes to what they should do and shouldn't do. I mean, is there something we can learn from them in starting to rebuild this faulty foundation? Or are they going to the extreme now? Because I definitely think that they are beginning to change conversation and reshape where, what, and how a woman should be perceived.
You see, the globalization has come to impact that space seriously. Today, even in extremely conservative societies like Iran, in Iran today, there are protests.
Yes.
That protest is clashing against religious beliefs in that society, extremely conservative society. And people are watching from all over the world. Don't forget where that protest started. It has to do with a woman wearing...
Yes, hijab.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So globalization has come to more or less empower the modern lady or modern woman to see things from a different perspective than what we have. However, the society still owes that duty to make it easier, even for that generation, in spite of the fact that they're much better than the older generation when it comes to their perception about how to go about what they want. They're not as conservative, don't do this, don't do. No.
Yeah.
In fact, the more you say don't do, the more enticing it becomes for them. They want to find out.
They want to go against it. So, Ty, what have you seen about these Gen Z women that we can learn from, perhaps? You know, is it the courage? Is it, because, like he said, society hopefully catches up, but, we're moving and we need to move on. So what can we learn?
I mean, the amazing thing is that they are not burdened or constrained by a lot of the stereotypical thinking that a lot of us were raised on. So, they have seen examples because I don't know if you know how powerful examples are.
The role model piece.
The role model. To be able to see somebody and say, oh my gosh, I can be that. You just hear somebody talk and the person is mirroring some of your values or things that you aspire to. So you see, it is very important to show these examples. And many times, we don't get to see them. That's why. A while ago, somebody asked me that, within the political space, who is a female that you admire and that, you want to? And it amazed me how much I needed to think, and not just have a ready answer. And I had to widen my scope to think beyond Nigeria and actually think globally and say, who do I believe that I share similar virtues with or something? But, I hail the Gen Zs and I'm proud that they don't have the same constraints. Nobody can tell them anything.
Yeah.
If they want to do something, they will do it. They don't see themselves first as women or as girls. They see themselves first as contributors, people who have something to contribute to the society.
Value to add to the society.
And that's so beautiful.
Exactly. It's beautiful to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Farismi, I'm really curious to know what you think about the Gen Zs. And especially because, they're out there. These gender norms that some of us really were burdened with, they have no interest in it, right? You know, you would see a guy say he cooks, you know, things that we were a taboo.
I know.
I mean, for my mother's generation and then for my generation, we're like more mothers. But then, like I said, they're taking no prisoners.
They scare me, but they also excite me. They scare me by the breadth of their capacities. They excite me by what I believe they can achieve since they don't understand limitations. But I'm also worried because of the country they live in. They see themselves as citizens of the world.
Yes.
But unfortunately, they are not citizens in their own country. And it is critical that they understand that the only way they become citizens is by playing the game of pretense that the Nigerian state plays. Every 4 years, they get the opportunity to play in a game called democracy. The more of them that gets involved in that game, the less likely that those who have ruined our country would get a chance to do it again, because the capacity to change the country will come from their own participation.
Absolutely.
If they think that being Gen Z is about existing on the internet, as the politicians have been fond of pointing out to them, there are no polling booths on Twitter. So if they do not become actively involved in the change process, they might be Gen Z online, but they will not be Gen Z
At the polls.
in Nigeria.
And in Aso Rock, actually, frankly, right, which is where we want to see women. Did you want to?
Is that only where we want to see women?
No, we want to see women in
At all
levels of
levels.
leadership across all sectors, right? And I mean that's what we want to see. Did you want to?
The beauty of that is that we don't have to have the long wait of an America to do that. If you think about the fact that today everybody can vote if you're of age, America didn't have that opportunity. There was a time in America when, unless you have land, you cannot vote. You must be male. In fact, for over 100 years of America's democracy, women did not vote in America. But we don't have to wait all that long. Today, women can vote. If you're 18, you can vote. So the more we can mobilize ourselves into that space, see ourselves as part of the solution, the better for us.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to take another break, hear from our audience in the studio, and then we'll come back to our guests to wrap this up. So now we want to go into the audience and hear from them. Patriarchy. I heard the word patriarchy. Anybody?
A patriarchy is a system that favors men. Men have a designated role as leader, and then women and everybody else followers, they fall under. The man is the head. You respect the man. You support the man. Everything you do is supposed to aid the man. That's what patriarchy is.
Great. Is that a yes?
That's fantastic.
Is that a yes?
Yep.
So, general question for the audience. Is Nigeria a patriarchal society? Yes. Okay. And are we going to change it? Yes. Awesome. I love that. Okay, great. All right. Welcome back, everyone. So during our break, we went into the audience and we learned about a new word, the meaning of patriarchy. And I think we collectively agreed that Nigeria is a patriarchal society. Let me come back to our guests. So we've really explored a few things today. We've talked about the fact that, we do have a faulty foundation, but that faulty foundation is a societal construct and therefore it can be deconstructed. We've explored some potential ways to deconstruct it. As you said, culture, religion, a legal framework. How do we change perceptions, shape perceptions? How globalization is helping the younger people to really deconstruct that mindset because they weren't burdened. What will be your final thoughts on this, especially as you think about women, right, taking their place in political leadership positions? There is something wrong with women being half of a country like Nigeria, but only make up 4.1% of its leadership. It means that there are not enough people in those corridors representing their own kind. What can we really start to do differently?
I think it's easy to focus on gender and then talk about the discrimination against the female gender. Very easy. But if we were a society that is typical, then that would be a gainful venture to undertake. But given the peculiarities of our society, where disadvantages exist in almost every sphere. I have a friend, for instance, he's about child's rights. So I asked him one day, I said, you're fighting for children's rights. How do you fight for children's rights in a society where even the grown-ups have no rights? So you're already talking about the normalization of a system of injustice. And then you're focusing on a narrow aspect of that. So when you're done dealing with child's rights, we're now dealing with gender rights. When you're done dealing with gender rights, you now start dealing with every right in Nigeria is practically non-recognized and not enforced. So I think that going forward, we should actually be focused on making sure that a person in Nigeria, male or female, is even treated as human first.
Yes.
When we are now done treating the person as human, let's now deal with the special classes of rights, the gender rights that should accrue to the woman, because it is in the legitimization of the denial of my right, whatever that right might be, that the denial of the right of the next person is also legitimized. If you've denied my right in a special class, or rather in a general class, it becomes easier to deny those rights to special classes as well. So it's the generalized loss of rights that finds space for the particularized losses now. That's why you're dealing with, she is losing her right because she's female. But that's easy to achieve because we've all lost our rights as even as human beings,
as
collectively.
humans. I hear you. What would you say, Tari?
Well, I mean, it's speaking to leadership within governance and politics, particularly. I would say that the political parties have a large role to play because that's where that's where we are served with potential leaders. And if the processes within the political parties are not in such a way that they are producing capable, competent female, candidates, then we would not get that 35% that we're looking for, whether in appointive or in elective positions. So the first thing is that women need to participate. First of all, you need to be part of a political party. You can be an armchair critic and not like the way things are going. But if you want to actually make an impact, if you want to make change, you have to join a political party. And then the woman's involvement in political parties should not be the token woman leader position or whatever.
Which is all we got, by the way.
You know what I mean? So no, there's an entire, there's an entire structure, whether it's the chairman, whether it's the deputy chairman, whether it's the secretary, national working committee. Women can fill roles across board. It doesn't have to be the token positions. And even women need to be bold enough to not just accept the token positions.
Absolutely.
You have to be ambitious. You have to say, you know what, I can be the chairman.
Yes.
So hey, that's how
thank you. Awesome.
Okay, for me, I would like to see more men take up women advocacy. Most of the gender advocacy initiatives are led by women. They are the same people who are, let me use the word oppressed now. If you say 5% participation in political leadership, for women, when they are 49% of your population, there's a clear disadvantage right there. So it would be nice if we get more men to advocate on their behalf. It's not as if they are not there. All through my education, I have women who consistently beat me in class. So how will I now say this person is not competent to do what I'm competent to do? So more men need to step out there and help them get out of their shell and do better. Then women must also showcase what they have. There are quite a number of people that are doing fantastically well in their corners. They must showcase what they are doing. One of my favorite ministers in this country was Dora Akunyili.
Yes. Rest her. God rest her soul.
Well, thank you all very much for your time. This has been a very insightful, yes? It has been a very, very insightful conversation. And we look forward to continuing the conversation because this is only supposed to be a conversation starter. So please continue to have this conversation. Encourage more men to be male allies, and we hope to see women in leadership positions.
Amen to that.
Yes.
So once again, I want to thank my amazing guests for being here and exploring the topic with us, A Faulty Foundation, Why Women Fail. Join us next week where we talk about Too Cool for Politics with 3 other amazing guests. Until then, thank you for watching. Don't forget to shout out to a leading woman you know and tag us, and we'll help you celebrate her too. Before I go, let me let you know that we believe that women's leadership can change everything, everywhere. Until next time, thank you.